If your family almost gets killed by an acid-spewing centipede, you should be crying about your favorite ice cream running out. If you're going to die, leave your cannon to your significant other. Have the cannon go off at the sound of your significant other's catchphrase, which he says quite often. But don't tell him about that. That probably won't lead to any severe consequences. Most people won't care if you're naked in public. If you're a parental figure and the child in your care mutates into some Akira-inspired cat monster, just leave them. There's probably a tectonic emergency that requires all three of you. That problem will sort itself out. If your parent and the guardians you leave your child to abandons them at a time they mutate into some Akira-inspired cat monster, then you should do nothing to try to get your child back. They're probably responsible. Having mouths at the end of your fingertips is adorable and not disturbing beyond all belief. If you fail at something, then you should never try learning it again. If a girl from out of town loses a bracelet, then you should keep it in your freezer. She might inexplicably be in your town again later. Just test her or endear her to you and won't be interpreted as creepy. She has no other options. Wrestling is real. If two women say they hate professional wrestling, you should beat them up. You should keep a carnivorous wild animal as a pet. If someone is shirking their responsibilities to go beat their meat, join them! Touch people's nipples. It's endearing. A wand that can duplicate things is a fair trade for an action figure you can find in a vending machine. You should trade things that don't belong to you. You should break other people's things. Because you're lazy. If someone's going to grow up to help defend the Earth, then fitness is not a priority. When it comes to destroying the communication hub, fusing with both Pearl and Amethyst is not an option. It has to be one or the other. If you have the ability to form a protective bubble, don't do that while there's debris falling everywhere. Working out is bad for you, but eating donuts all the time is a-okay. If you're a parental figure and the child in your care is inspired to do something healthy from someone you don't like, then you should shame that child. Acting petty and jealous means you're the hero. Anything is forgivable. Except for smashing stuff. Stealing the ocean and putting it back has no negative consequences on the ecosystem. You should help people who try to drown you. You don't freeze in space. You can talk and breathe in space. If someone kept you in a mirror for thousands of years, never bring it up again. Use duct tape on something that is about to explode. That will fix it. If a child's parent says they can't go into space, ignore the parent and then try to kidnap the child. If your coworker is kind of a stick in the mud, try trapping them on an island. They'll fall in love with you. Apparently you can miss work for a long time and not lose your job. It helps if nobody knows who your boss is. If you're friends with a violently unstable conspiracy nut, then you should support their delusional worldview for the sake of maintaining their immediate comfort. Do a lot of drugs. That's the only way any of the characters' actions in this episode make any sense. If a gem is fused with a human, call the fusion inappropriate. That will go over well with the fusion in the room. Also, if someone is a huge fusion fan and activist, then they'll definitely back you up on your anti-fusion position. Two kids combined means that they're practically an adult, meaning pornographic art of them is okay. If someone tries to sacrifice someone else, never bring it up again. If an episode ends with the implication that two characters are trying to mend their friendship, never bring it up again. If someone is really upset and needs some time alone, don't give them that time alone. The healing begins now. If a woman tells you to leave them alone, don't listen. If your parental figure and the child of your care is dangling off a cliff, do nothing. They'll probably climb up. Saving them will cut into precious crying time. It's okay for a parental figure to endanger a child's life if they're sad. It's also okay to say awful things to that child because you're upset. If somebody makes a shirt of your father, you should shoot their father. Trespassing on someone's property to give them a shirt is a great idea. You should give up on your dreams if you see a hot woman. If you want to warn someone before an invasion, make sure to send the message in the form of an obnoxiously loud device that requires special audio equipment to translate. That is way more logical than just sending the message. If your experimenting leads to the power going off, don't do anything to fix it. It's not your problem, and humans have survived without power for thousands of years. If a politician lies to you, it means that they love you. If an enemy ship is about to fire on you, do nothing. Don't get out of the way or fuse, just stand there. If you have the ability to control water and you're standing next to an ocean, don't do anything, especially if your friends are in danger. Having a bunch of panels on the ship that if touched will activate an escape pod that will send you flying is a great idea. If someone wants to fuse with you, do it. You can trap them in the ocean and abuse them. If someone is propositioning another to fuse in order to kill you, just stand there and do nothing. If a character has an awesome fight scene that pretty much got the most pop culture attention that the show ever got, then make sure that character gets lamer and lamer. Make them super one note and only talk about fusion. When you're meeting someone for the first time, you should dress up like their dead mother. If some weird older guy comes up to you and claims to be your uncle, then you should spend time with them. It's okay to let a stranger fire a gun at you. If you get caught out for trying to turn someone who already has confidence issues into sacrificing their own life, play the pity card. The person will end up apologizing to you. Additionally, if you call out your parental figure who brainwashed your best friend and they start crying, apologize for ruining their training. That was very inconsiderate of you. You should have just let them brainwash your friend. If you and your friends wrote a character doing unlikable accents and as a result people don't like them, get angry and petty on Twitter. That's a mature response. If someone manipulated their friend to use their friend's body for their own pleasure, that's just a cry for help. We should feel bad for the manipulator. They're the real victim, not the person whose body was used. If you're meeting a stranger online and you're legitimately worried about getting murdered, just go alone. Don't bring the ultra-strong woman with you. Characters need flaws to be interesting, so you're not allowed to call out the writers for poorly handling the flaws. If you have the ability to transform into flying objects, or to stretch out your limbs, or many other solutions to taking down a flying enemy, don't use any of those abilities when trying to take down a flying enemy. Just let them get away. If apologizing constantly to the person you violated doesn't work, just cry and play the pity card again. It will finally work and they'll get over their issues of not forgiving you when you violated them. If the mother of your best friend takes away the sword that belonged to your mother, don't tell your friend's mom that it belonged to your mom. That way you're more likely to get it back. You should always bring a sword into the hospital instead of leaving it in the car. If a multicolored woman with 6 arms and no head comes into your hospital, it must be a human being. If the stethoscope doesn't detect a heartbeat on a woman with no head and 6 arms, that must mean the stethoscope is broken. If some mutants are attacking you and you're being protected by a magical shield, you should question the existence of magic. If your mother is too strict, slaw some creatures in front of her. That will make her change. You should stare at women's butts while they sing. You should take off your dress and give it to a little boy if you have confidence issues. If you want to talk to an enemy about information, do it alone. You should always sexually proposition enemies while you're trying to capture them. If you locked yourself in the bathroom to avoid getting attacked, do not escape through the window. You should definitely be alone in the bathroom with an enemy. You should also poop in front of them. Ultra powerful gems cannot break wooden doors. You should always play in thunderstorms. If someone you barely know, who until recently was an enemy, wants you to go somewhere alone with them, go with them! If someone comes from a society where certain regressive beliefs are ubiquitous, and they have those regressive beliefs as a cause of that, you should be surprised by that. Do not explain to people why you're calling them out, especially if it's not their fault that they have the beliefs they do. Instead, challenge them to a pointless gym measuring contest. That robot is not garbage. One quality that should always be tested in a robot is how good it is at ballet. You should throw cars in the distance. That's not potentially unsafe. You shouldn't be racist against someone, not because racism is wrong and awful, but because that person works really hard and isn't like the other members of their race. You have to kiss the ground that Pearl walks on. It's okay to be this insecure about whether or not people like a certain character. If you're punishing someone, you should not tell them why you're punishing them. That way they are sure to learn their lesson. You should laugh at foreigners for being ignorant about aspects of your culture. You should encourage people to say terrible stuff about your friends. If the person who you encourage to say terrible stuff about your friends starts saying terrible stuff about you, then you have every right to be mad at them. If someone who doesn't know any better accidentally hurts your feelings, then you should stop talking to them. Don't explain why you're hurt, just hope that someone else tells them why you're upset. That's a mature thing to do. Cows are to be blamed for everything. If you have a character that was there for a significant event, never bring it up again. If there's a monster in the center of the earth that would destroy the earth any day now, then you're in no hurry to destroy it. You can waste time with stuff like a robotic gym measuring contest, a birthday party, making a song, or even just sitting around. Time isn't of the essence. If someone grew in only a few seconds, don't be suspicious of it. Pushing someone off a roof is only worth a mild scolding. If someone from the society you're in conflict with defects to your side, never ask them questions about their society. If you wrote a mysterious character, but you have no idea what backstory to give them the most generic backstory ever. If it's revealed that one character did something awful to another character, never bring it up again. If you're an artist who got called out for drawing characters off model, you should make a joke about it, and then continue to draw characters off model. In fact, you should not keep characters on model. You should have the characters go off model for no reason other than lack of quality control. It doesn't matter if sometimes the animation looks really bad and character heights are changed drastically. You're an easygoing production. However, everything should be from the main character's perspective. Everything. That's a rule. If you have a character that needs more development and a fan favorite character that people want to see more of, just shove them in a barn. Someone standing up to a dictator is totally not that big of a deal. If 5 soldiers land on your property and you can properly defeat them in less than a minute, you should play baseball with them instead. Your stupid plan might work since they are stupid too. Either that or they're smart enough to realize that you could easily defeat them. If you're going on a special trip, then you shouldn't invite your whole family, just the 2 that are most likely to argue. You should be singing while everyone else is trying to sleep. If someone is upset, you should try to break their stuff. If you find yourself in someone else's body, Do not try to seek help from informed viewpoints. You should instead try to bang the donut girl. You should try to force a romance between the donut shop employees. You can get away with showing a porno in a kid's show if you're really subtle about it. Wait, if Sadie is able to watch Caligula, then that means he is over 18, and in this episode they pretty much confirmed that Lars is a teenager, so...
Sadie never came home last night?
She's an adult!
You should try to force two people together, even though their romance is pedophilia. If you have a body swap episode, do not show the other person in the main character's body. That would not have been entertaining. Everyone likes you better when you're a completely different person. It's okay that everyone hates you, because pedophiles like you. If you've played video games, that means you know how to drive a car. If someone claims to have a girlfriend, don't believe them. They're too much of a loser to have one. If your poorly thought out plan accidentally ruins a relationship, don't do anything to fix it. It's not your problem. If a girl is over at your place and you're having a candlelight dinner, you should make vain comments. Sleeping tires you out. You should speak for people. If a baby is in danger and you have the power of floating, wait until the very last minute to use it. You should be scared of someone collecting rocks. You should reward children with stickers of your face. Wanting to kill a genocidal dictator makes you just as bad as a genocidal dictator. Everyone will agree with you on your viewpoint, especially if your viewpoint is extremely naive. Yo-yos are effective weapons. You should be ashamed of your mother killing a genocidal dictator. If there are monsters in cages that you need to exterminate, make sure to let them out of their cages before extermination. You should envision historical figures as harder than they were. Beating someone up is not that big of a deal. Black women are only there to help white people. You should be in everyone's business. It's perfectly fine to disregard people's safety if you're venting stress. Moving on from a previous relationship means dating someone that looks exactly like your former lover. If one of your parental figures has almost gotten you killed out of negligence, joke about it. Moving on also means getting together with a woman who never shows up again. If you're 14 years old, then having a 5-year-old not want to play with you is the worst thing ever. There's nothing more awful than having to spend the afternoon by yourself. If you're jealous that your friend has other friends, don't worry, those friends are only there for the summer, and the rest of the time, your friend is dependent on you. If you're going to have a holiday special, then it should be a Thanksgiving special. Those are the most beloved and memorable holiday specials. Some older white guy being a bigot is not that big of a deal. If you're half human, then you need to have your bigoted cousin uncle in your life so you can connect with your human half. Because it's not like there's a plethora of other humans in your life where you could get that connection. It's wise to waste 2 episode slots on a mostly conflictless special introducing a pointless character. If 3 people tried to kidnap your child and almost killed him, you should still definitely let them near him. If you have the ability to see the future and you see that there's a dictator at a place someone wants to go, don't tell them there's a dictator there. In fact, you should not tell that person the information they want, making them want to go to the place where the dictator is. You are great at making decisions. You should feel bad for genocidal dictators when they cry. Getting kidnapped makes you lose 40 pounds. Human zoos are magical utopias filled with hot people. It's definitely appropriate to portray a human zoo, which was a real-life awful racist practice, as super cutesy. Parental abuse solves all of life's problems. If there's a bunch of captured people and gyms confined into place, just leave them there. Kids love 5-second fight scenes. Kids love boring as hell episodes about characters washing cars. Everybody does. You should wait till the last minute to have an actual conflict. You should be yourself as a completely new message for a show. If you're wearing a costume that could possibly show off your naughty bits in front of a friend, do not change clothes. Getting over depression is super easy. If someone is stranded into space, you should not try to help them. If a possibly hostile gym could possibly be deceiving the child in your care, and you foresaw it happening, don't do anything. Someone adjusting easily is suspicious. It's okay to have someone struggle with adjusting to a new environment and have that story be told off screen. An enemy stealing the only spaceship you have and possibly informing their leaders which might lead to an invasion is not that big of a deal. If you catch someone shoplifting from a costume shop, keep the costumes for yourself. You should let someone who has a history of various crimes off with a warning, especially if they're white. If there's a bunch of people going missing, you should definitely split up. It's the safest way. This running shot doesn't look ridiculous at all. If you're going to confront someone who is kidnapping a bunch of people, do not invite the person who has the power to control water. They won't be of any use. You should be ashamed of not wanting to rescue a pedophile. If someone is going to rebel against their employer, don't bring up that they can come live with you on Earth. Just let their employer convince them to stop rebelling. If you get someone killed, they'll pledge their life to you. You should laugh at someone's disability. Somebody getting killed and 2 lawyers getting poofed means that nobody got hurt. If someone just went through a traumatizing experience, you should get mad at them for giving up even though that was the only option available. If you're fighting someone who could incapacitate a larger fusion, forming a smaller one definitely would have helped. It's okay to write someone completely out of character just to manufacture conflict. It's okay to steal someone's pet if you're mad at them. You should help an incompetent white guy run for a political position over a more competent black woman because you feel guilty. You can totally twist their arms like this. You should shame a politician for doing the right thing and dropping out for the more deserving candidate. If someone is stranded in space, and the only way to contact them is a pathway through your pet lion's mane, and your girlfriend took your line away, you should not mention it while texting her. If your friend just went through a traumatizing experience, and you want some space from them, don't tell them while they're texting you that you need some space and to give you a few days. No, just ghost them. During your filler episode and your filler arc, you should tease some interesting info, and not deliver it. If someone is scarred by a villain, don't explain why they're scarred. The audience doesn't need to know. You should go to the party of someone who creeped on you. A bunch of grown women need a teenage boy to tell them what to do. Dying makes you cooler. If you played video games, then you definitely know how to fly a real spaceship. You should definitely end an episode teasing an exciting adventure that the audience will never see, and then follow that up with a boring documentary about a band. You should definitely waste money to get Joan Jett to record a couple pointless lines. You should name your pets after your kids. That won't be confusing at all. If you run a donut shop, name the donuts after yourself, especially if you're named Dewey. If you got someone's kid stranded in space, name a donut after them, and bring those donuts to his parents. Also, have those donuts be pink as a reminder that the kid is now a member of the living dead. If you broke up with someone, spy on them without their knowledge. It's not creepy in the slightest. If you want to sell someone information, don't tell them that's what you're doing. Instead, pretend to lose your phone for no reason. If you're a leader and you want to rebel against the other leaders and change their society, don't rebel as yourself. Start from scratch as a new identity. Have it where you have to rebel against your own forces. If you want an advantage in a war, make it seem like you killed one of the leader's family. That totally won't unnecessarily escalate things. A big part of liberation is using magical powers to make sure the one you're liberating doesn't snitch. If you're feeling guilty about keeping a secret, then you should not show anyone that secret until much, much later. If a parental figure pretty much says you shouldn't be everyone's psychologist, you should immediately be someone's psychologist. If you're going to stop the path of redeeming genocidal dictators, have it happen on the same episode as a gay wedding. It will soften the blow. The powers of magnetism are a joke. Someone who has the power to control water is useless right next to the ocean. Nepotism solves all of your problems, including the wrath of war criminals. It's okay to be chummy with genocidal dictators. Genocidal dictators you barely know? Family. The people who helped raise and nurture you. Friends. If you want your show to be taken seriously, include a giant pink ash ship. People being stuck inside walls is not that big of a deal. It's best to use a comb that's alive so that it will occasionally scream at you. Being related to dictators is tough because they're so busy. You shouldn't protest if somebody calls a person of color a pet. If you're making a prison for people who can transform into flying objects, make sure to include windows. If you have the ability to float down and you can squeeze through the window, don't do that. Just stay in prison. You should use someone's body for your personal gain. Kiss sharks. Just do it. You can convince a bigoted dictator to stop doing that by a short speech. All abusers would stop being abusers just by a short talking to. You should shove as many major events into your final episode as you can because that doesn't dilute the impact of those events at all. It's not like you could have had those events happen earlier in the show. Screaming gets you your way. You should laugh at someone who thinks you're going to get killed by a bigoted dictator. If you come from a closed-minded family, then you need to die. Those closed-minded family members will finally learn their lesson after that. You should name your new settlement after the tyrannical empire that enslaved the people living in it. Putting a gem on someone's crotch is a good idea. If you have 0 combat experience, then you should go fight 3 experienced war veterans. They probably really suck. If you have a healing fountain, don't use it when you and your family are wounded. If you need to get to the top of a smooth spaceship, don't ask any of your friends who know how to fly to bring you up there. Just climb up there yourself. Thank God you got bitten by that radioactive spider. It's entirely possible to get a ship with your gem on top of it, a rejuvenator, poof, reform, and fly to Earth in only a few hours. A ship's worth of toxins that is said to kill all organic life on Earth getting injected into the Earth is not that big of a deal. You should live with formerly genocidal dictators who love to minimize your pain. Kiss the ground. Just do it. If you sing while fighting, you will win. If someone squashes a bug, you should be really upset about that. You should fight that person in a fight that would destroy a lot of trees, probably killing a lot more creatures. It's perfectly acceptable for a former slave to get a new name from their former slave owner after they've been liberated. Volleyball is a perfectly acceptable name for a sentient being. If you have two villains who were previously treated as legitimate threats team up, then you should portray that comedically. Grown women are still completely codependent on a teenage boy. You should use weapons and fire in a game of tag. If your friend is having trouble talking because he can't relate to normal people, don't try to help. Never make any ships canon. Lesbians are useless at romantic advice. Being able to fix the bad things you do is messed up. Unless you're a former genocidal dictator. Almost murdering a genocidal dictator is a sign that you went too far. You should make the scary monster your protagonist turned into look like a wee-wee. 16 years old is the perfect time to leave home. You can make a revolutionary cartoon even if you have previously drawn Ed, Ed, and Eddie porn. Or can't tell if a gym looks like blackface.